Now, we can all understand how difficult it can be to manage our money well, especially when your money gets funny and your change gets a little strange. In this episode, we're going to be talking to my friend Van Jones as he gives us some basic tips to help us budget our money better this year. Let's jump into this episode of the Man to Man podcast. What are some tips that you would give them for like basic budgeting that'll help them to build a good financial foundation as they move on?
I think a budget is telling your money where to go rather than letting it just do what it wants to do. You have to discipline that money. First things first, if you're just starting out, that's great. You have to write everything down. Some people don't like to write. I still use a pen and pad every day. But if you don't like to write it down, type it down, scan it down, swipe it down. Whatever you do, get it on in some type of format where you can see it. Because I say out of sight, out of mind. So put it in some type of format. I have mine plastered on my wall, so I know what is due. I know how much is available. I know what we're going to make. You have to know what's coming in, and you have to know what's going out, and you have to fix some things, and some things will be variable. But for me, it's writing it down, and weekly, looking at your I look at my transactions every morning after I do my devotion. I peruse my transactions, see what came out, what's coming out, and take a review of it. And weekly, on the weekends, on Saturdays, I take some time to deep dive, see how much was spent. And every month, I pull my bank statements. I literally print them out because I'm a paper guy. I get my highlighter and my pencil and look at them to see where we are. And I also use QuickBooks. Some people use different platforms, but we use the QuickBooks system. And with the QuickBooks, I can look at P&L, I can see what's coming out, what's going in, I can see where this needs to go, I can categorize things. So I think writing it down and categorizing it and just displaying some disciplines. Just be a little bit disciplined.
Yeah, and that's one thing I remember being just really foundational for me when we were going through that time, didn't have a bunch of money, man, and I was just like, man, it just seems like our money is just come in and it leave. And I remember you challenging me to just take a look at it. And I had to get to a point where I was okay with just showing you everything. I talked to my wife about it. I was like, look, I'm gonna show Van all bank statements, all this kind of stuff, and we just pulled everything out. And it was amazing to see that the power of being able to tell your money where to go. I was actually sitting with a guy I've been mentoring for the last couple of years, and he's always talking about, well, I don't have enough money, I don't have this, and so I was like, man, let's sit down, let's write it down. I said, so how much is this? Give me all your bills. He pulled up his bank statement. He gave me all his bills. He gave me this. We found out that dude had almost like an extra, according to his budget, according to what he told me, he had like almost like an extra like $1,200 a month that wasn't allocated to anything, but he wasn't paying attention to it. So he'll just spend it. He'll look at his bank statement. He'll just spend it. He'll go out. He'll buy stuff. And it wasn't the discipline of actually saying, okay, this money is going to be allocated to different things that are just for fun. This is for savings. This is for that. And so it was cool to just sit back and see that he did have that money. And I think with budgeting and different things like that, it gives you a sense of power. For me, it gives me a sense of power, give me a sense of confidence to know that I'm not as broke as I thought I was. I actually do have some money. I just need, like you said, more discipline. With the discipline aspects, I know you and I have talked about different strategies and different things as far as when you write those things down. And I think one strategy that kind of stuck with me was the Terrell principle.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain that and how that works for those who may be interested in it?
It really works well if you're just starting out, but if you're not there, you have to cut some things and shave some things off and get in alignment. Terrell stands for tithe, offering, rainy day, investment, and living. And that's 5 places that you need to send your money, tell your money where to go. The tithe, we know off top, let's say easy math, I made $100, I give God $10 of that. And then offering, rainy day, and investment, I wait before I put a percentage on those. I use percentages. Mm-hmm. And I do my best to stay at 70% or below on living. And what the living looks like is my wife and I, her allotment, we don't call it allowance, we call it an allotment. My allotment, her allotment. The kids work now, so we don't really give them allotment anymore because they both have a couple of jobs. But if I was giving the kids allowances, yes. So her allotment, my allotment, food, housing, car, gas, all of that goes underneath the living. So the living should be 70% or less. If you can live off 60% of your money, your future is super bright, because you can take the rest of the money and invest it for the future. 60% with living. I try to do percentages if I can, but 60 and 70 is very difficult right now if you've already started out, because most people are at their peak, they're at 100%.
Right.
So we try to do 70% or less with the living, tithe 10%, that's 80, and I divide the rest, the other 20% amongst the investment, the offering, rainy day, and investment. So tithe 10%, 70% living, and the other 3 offering, rainy day, and investment. I do my best to tweak those, put that money, because the future is coming. There's an old man on the side of you that's relying on you, an old woman on the inside of you that's relying on you to take care of them when you get older. So you gotta have some money put away. There's gonna be some rainy days. Stuff's gonna break. It breaks every month. Something's always gonna happen. You gotta have some discretionary income, so where you can go grab $1,000, $1,500, $500. The research shows that a large percentage of America, we don't have $500 to $1,000 set aside if something bad happens. So we have to go to payday loans and borrow from other people, and that's when the problems happen. And then with the offering is giving to others. We try to be a blessing to the kingdom every month in our business. We set a percentage aside in our business because we believe you sow seeds, great things will happen. We try to be a blessing in our home. We gift to others. We give to friends, family, loved ones, people that we don't know. That's where the offering part comes in. So that's the real tithe, offering, rainy day, investment, and living. 10% tithe, 70 or below with living, and the rest of it, the last 20%, use it for the offering, rainy day, and investment. And you can invest in yourself, you can invest in your future, you can invest in your present. An investment, every investment has an ROI or return on that investment.
Yeah, that's one thing, man. When I was learning this from you, man, that's probably one of the hardest things for me is to not max out like everything, right?
Yeah.
Because especially when I was younger, because it was like, man, it's my money, right? This is what I work hard for. This I want to enjoy it and different things like that. But that sense of discipline I've learned with being more disciplined, man, I have more peace, right? Because when you have stuff in savings, you don't freak out too much when the AC go out. When your car and different things, and you haven't set aside stuff like that, because there's always something wrong with the car, right? Always something wrong. And when you're able to say, oh man, I don't really want to, but I do have it, it's just an amazing feeling to have, to be able to reach in that rainy day account, throw it at some whatever unexpected expenses, and be able to still enjoy your living and your life from the regular money that you get all the time, man. So that's pretty cool. We talked briefly, off and on at times, about the responsibility and the expectation that you put on your girls as far as money and just teaching them that kind of stuff, man. So for those parents who are out there with like young kids and they're kind of learning about money and kind of stuff, what is one thing that you would say is important to teach your kids about money early on in their life?
We moved 2 years ago now, but the house we were in before, every morning we would get up and they would come to my office at least 3 days a week, and we would talk about Jesus, we talk about relationships, and we talk about money. Yeah. We watch videos, Secret Millionaires Club, Warren Buffett has something cartoon based for children. I don't know if it's still online, but we watched them several times, and I taught them to develop a relationship with money. Mm-hmm. And the goal is, I know they're 15 and 19, about to be 20. They may have steered off the path or may steer off the path, but they have those basic monetary principles on the inside of them that they can always go back to. They both have had bank accounts for at least 5 years or more. Vanessa's 19. She's had a bank account at least since she was 15 and 16. Sydney's had a bank account since she was 13. They have debit card. They understand debits and credits. They understand debt. Vanessa has been paying her car note. We gave her a Sweet 16 card, but we also told her you got to pay your car note. Yeah. So we did that on purpose, so she'd be set up for success. Yeah. And she's also always paid her own insurance, and this is her second car, and she pays her own insurance and her own car note. She's always been responsible with that, and I don't pay it. She pays it online, and the insurance automatically is drafted. She sets that up, and I help her negotiate it every year if it's too high or something's changed. I assist, but our goal is to show them, because I remind people often that these are not children, these are mini adults. Yeah. And our job is to we talked about this morning in one of my other groups, to dysfunctionally help them. I think dysfunctional help hurts people. And if I help them, it becomes a crutch or a hindrance, and they will not fly and become adults. We talk about the butterfly and the cocoon. We talk about the diamond. We talk about all those things in nature that require resistance and training and difficulty. And I think when we help our kids too much, they're not successful. She made some bloopers, but that's our older daughter has. And I sat her down, our mom sat her down. We talked about, hey, how can we make that better? Yeah. So money is a big deal, and a few things we talked to them about, again, debit, credits, savings. We taught them the Terrell principle from an early age. I would draw my big hand on a sheet of paper and I would teach them, and they know what it is, and the goal is for them to live by it. And Vanessa just is about to finish school. We pray that she follows in those steps. She just gets started. It's the perfect time to follow the Terrell if you just get started with your finances.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool, man, because you'll be surprised. I know you're not surprised. I'm surprised because I got a 5-year-old, how much they understand, how much they can learn, not just about money, but just about life. And so teaching them different principles like, hey, we give God money, we give him some, and hey, you got this, but we're going to take a little bit of this, we're going to give it to God. I think this, me and my wife, we're trying to explain that to her for her birthday, because she got a good amount of money, and we just explained to her, hey, we're gonna take this percentage and we're gonna put it in the church, and this is what we give to God as an offering, and this is what we give to the church. We tried to explain it the best we could, and she wasn't too bothered by it because she said she had a lot of money still left over in her mind to go buy toys and do stuff like that. And, when she's 5 years old, she ain't got no bills to pay, she ain't got nothing to worry about. But instilling that type of principle, like helping her to understand that, hey, this part is going to go over here, this part is going to go in your piggy bank, and then you can have fun with this right here and buy your new Barbie dolls and different things like that. And so it was taking the opportunity for like birthdays and stuff like that, and taking it, the whole Tooth Fairy thing, and doing the money with that and all that, and just it gives those opportunities to present something and put something in front of her that she's going to have to deal with for the rest of her life, right? And she's going to have to get a good hold on her money, because if not, it makes things a little bit harder, because we all need money, right? We all need money to operate, to run, and so why not operate with money in a healthy way, in a good way? And it's been pretty cool to kind of venture that with her and to help her understand what that is, man. And I'm excited to get better at helping her and teaching her about just financially being in a good place, because I think that's a good thing to have. So.
Well, in the church, financial literacy has been taboo, but without money, mission is madness.
Yeah.
You cannot do ministry and mission without money. You have to have some resources. Jesus paid taxes. Jesus, when he needed to come into Jerusalem in his last week on earth, he needed a car, a vehicle. He called for a brand new coat that nobody had ever ridden. That cost resources. Everything about life, it was time to feed the people. The disciples said, hey, how are we going to feed all these people?
We need money.
We need some money to get it done. And I think he talks about money more than anything else.
Yeah.
He talked about, over in 2 Timothy, Paul wrote to Timothy about the love of money. God wants us to be fruitful, abundant, and multiply, but at the same time, he wants us to establish some principles. One is earn as much as you can, be very generous, save as much as you can, invest as much as you can, and have a healthy relationship with debt. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, because Dave Ramsey and a bunch of people said no debt, no debt, no debt, no debt, from the hills, no debt. However, if you have a healthy relationship with debt, I know the Bible says the borrower is slave to the lender, and that's a whole nother context that people take it out of.
Yeah.
And it is imperative that you have a healthy relationship with that. Not consumer debt, buying stuff that I don't need. But if I want nowadays 1,500 square foot home for my family, I don't have $150,000, $200,000 laying around. I can't just go buy it cash.
Right.
So a healthy relationship with some certain types of debt. My car breaks down. The goal is to save up enough money to buy a brand new car cash, but the likelihood of that happening is slim next to none. But I want to buy a car with low interest rate, I call it cheap money or 0% interest, and get something I can afford, and I pay it off quickly. I can double up on the notes. I can pay an extra note. I can, if the note is $300 a month, I can pay $350 or $400 and get that debt off of me quickly and be disciplined.
Right.
So Debt has really gotten a bad name because it is unhealthy debt. It's I think it's healthy and unhealthy debt.
Yeah, and I think so too. I was talking to a young man, and we were just talking about the differences between he was like putting some stuff on his car for like clothes and different things like that. And he has an older car. There ain't nothing wrong with it, but he's been talking about wanting to get a new car, different things like that. So we're looking at the money. I said, "Dude, you talking about you want a new car and you ain't got no money?" I said, "Dude, you got a whole extra, $1,200 a month." I said, "If you wanted to do that, you could. If you wanted to, find something you can afford, find something that's not old, and you can get it and just pay it off." And then I said, "Hey, but if your old car is running, if it's cool and you good with that, you keep rolling with it." He was like, "Man, I'm cool with it." So
let's talk about a relationship with cars and houses. If you want to go there,
yeah, it's cool. It's fine.
America, we are flashy, showy, and we don't know delayed gratification.
Right.
And we want everybody to see our money. We wear our money. We drive our money. Right. We try to live in our money, and we up to the heels in debt because we're only concerned about what people who really don't care about us think about us.
Right.
And I tell folks all the time, what you think of me has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's what God thinks of me, and I'm not gonna be rude, nasty, or obnoxious. But what you think about me has nothing to do with me. I'm trying to do kingdom business here.
Right.
So what happens is we want to be like the proverbial Joneses of the historical New York family that everybody wanted to be like. But the Joneses don't exist. You have to be who God calls you to do it be. And if you have a car that's working, the AC is working in the summertime, and if you have enough cash to get it fixed if it breaks, you have good tires, you can travel, or if you need to travel, you can rent something to go travel, keep the miles off of your car. That's not a bad idea either. You have a functional vehicle that gets you from point A to point B, that's fine. But if you're putting more money in that car every month than a new car note, or that you're saving, now it's time to make a decision. If you're, I say throwing pearls to swine, or if you're wasting money.
Right.
That's a different story, but you have to be the judge of that and get some advice before you go buy a car that you can't afford to impress people that you don't know that don't like you.
Right.
So that's my take on cars. Houses. You find something that you can afford for your family that fits your family and maximize it. Get the lowest interest rate right now. They're up to 8.5%, but you can negotiate that when the rates come down. Get something you can afford. It don't have to be a monstrosity where everybody say, "Look at him on the hill." Find something that you can afford, that your family is comfortable in, because the kids will be gone soon. And we buy these large homes for kids who will be gone in a decade or so. Find something comfortable that you can take care of. That's a fairly decent tax write-off that you can maintain, and just enjoy life. Get out in nature, and don't put too much stock in your home. I know we call them investments, but oftentimes those, because they're not making any more land, homes are great. I talk about homes all the time, and real estate is always great. It's a great investment to grab real estate. But if you can't afford the home that you live in, you need to make some adjustments.
Right.
You talk about an afford, and my dad would always say, "Don't live well above your means." So that's my take on homes. That's my take on cars.
I mean, I think that's good, and I think it all boils back to discipline. Discipline it with your money, and discipline and contentment as well. It's because like I said earlier, man, when you get that money and you feel like you deserve certain things, and you use that as the excuse to get the nice thing or whatever. But like you said, most of the times you think, man, I'm gonna be looking clean in this boy. I'm gonna be looking nice. I'm gonna invite them over so they can, come and bless my house. Make sure they walk through all the rooms so they can see it.
We all do it. We want to be thought well of by all men. We want to show what God has done for us. When it moves beyond your testimony, saying, "Look what the Lord has done," the place that we sit in is a testimony. And I show people and I tell people this is a testimony, but it's going to be used for the glory of God. It's not for vain, just to enjoy, but it's going to be used for ministry purposes. When it becomes more about me and my personal preferences rather than ministry, that's when there's a thin line, and that does not honor God. But we all have it in us, man.
Yeah.
We want people to know that we're successful.
Right.
But the most important person or being or God knows that we're successful, and He wants us to make sure we're doing kingdom business. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
This conversation is going great, but we want to hear from you. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. You can pause the video, do whatever you got to do to leave a comment down below. Give me some advice or maybe something that you have learned from this episode that can help somebody else in the future. And once you leave that comment, we're going to jump right back into it. Let's go.
So it's one thing that you used to quote. I used to say all the time, and I used to remember. Was if you take care of God's business, He'll take care of yours, man.
Yes.
And so that attitude of what your finances and whether it's in the business realm or just in your life in general, having the attitude of building God's kingdom with the resources that He has provided you with, whether it's money or talents or whatever, it's kind of like a thing that it's just repetitive. God just keeps sowing back into you, keeps putting back into you as you sow into His kingdom, man. And that's where personally I always want to make sure that is that I'm not being selfish, that I'm not hoarding, that I'm not keeping this money, but finding opportunities and ways to go out to the community and just build God's kingdom with the finances that we do have, man. It's pretty cool.
And I want to talk about the definition of money and resources. Money is called currency for a reason. It's created to flow, like electrical currency or water. And money is of no use sitting in a bank unless it is drawing high interest. If it's sitting in a CD 1%, you'd be better off taking that money and investing in a higher yield investment opportunity. Real estate's always been great. Not making any more land. In Asia, I think they make their own land. They create some fake land. But money's made to flow. Have your emergency rainy day put to the side where there's not a famine if you lose your job. Dave Ramsey said 3 to 6 months. Have that put aside. But the rest of it, let's take that. Let's take some risk with it. No risk, no reward. The greater risk, the greater reward. And let that money flow. And oftentimes, if you sell something to have a big piece of profit that you never had that kind of money before, you try to hold on to it.
Yeah. But
it's not growing. And what'll happen is it'll slowly dwindle because you're not adding anything to it. The only way you can add something to it is to take it and invest it.
Right. So if we talk about investment, I hadn't planned on talking about this, but I like where we're going with this. If somebody is looking into investing but don't have any clue where to start, what would you tell that person?
First, invest in yourself. And we talk about that often. I must become the best version of Van. You must become the best version of James possible. People don't pay for average or mediocre. They pay for the best. You can get top dollar for being the absolute best you can be. So I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to go to seminars, classes, books, videos, online classes. Be the best me I possibly can be based on what God has shown me that I'm created to do it. Be Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12. Whatever my gifts are, I'm going to tap into those.
Right.
So me first. Secondarily, I must invest into others. Find a way to be a blessing. Because those seeds, once you plant them, they're going to come back. It's the law of nature.
Yeah.
It's the God's law. It's a principle. Thirdly, you got to think short term. What is some short term stuff I can invest into? Be it take $1,000, $3,000 and throw it into a used car, clean it up, fix it up if you have that kind of time or have a relationship to do it, sell it for a percentage more. It could be, I have a little business on the side I do after work. I pump a little money into that business, get that business, sell the products or sell the services, turn around and invest it right back. And this would be some short-term stuff. Then long-term stuff is IRAs. I have an IRA, I max out every month. I buy stock. I hadn't bought much lately, but during the pandemic, when everybody else was holding on to the money, I doubled down on airline stock and got some of that. Delta's was good. It was cheap at the time. It's going back up a little bit because people thought the airline weren't coming back, but that's the best way to travel. More accidents happen on the ground than in the air.
Right.
Saw 2 this morning. Invested in long-term stuff. TD Ameritrade, which is now Charles Schwab, you can invest in something like that where they can do it all for you online. I have a financial advisor who watches my IRA portfolio. If it lost money last 6 months, I said, hey, why don't you move some of this stuff? That's long-term stuff. And if you can afford to, take a little bit of that money and invest it into some properties.
Yeah.
Real estate is where it's at.
Yeah.
I don't care what people say, the market goes up and down. But if you hold on to it long enough, even some land or some old little tiny house, it's something you can afford. Real estate is where it's at. So, because people always have somewhere to live, they got to drive, and if you have a passion that you love to do that drives you every day, you can invest into that. You don't have to necessarily have a brick and mortar. I like brick and mortars because they can increase in value, but you can sell your service. It can be mobile, or you can go to them, or you can rent spaces. You don't necessarily have to own the space, but I like ownership because the landlords are in 100% control, and ownership is a big deal.
Right.
So that's my little quick take. Myself, others. Well, I didn't mention the kingdom of God. We do that first.
Right.
Anyway, so I didn't mention it. It's what we do. But myself, others, short-term stuff that I can get a quick turn on, long-term stuff, IRAs, PERS if you're in the educational arena. It's a lot of stuff. 401ks, long-term stuff. Google that stuff. You can invest into it, max it out every year, because there's an old or young old man or old woman inside of us that's relying on us. Social Security, we don't know if it's going to be there when we turn 60, 62, 63. We don't know if it's going to be there. So we have to create ways to rely on ourselves. But real estate gets a bad knock, but it is the way to go.
I think for us, we made an investment when we purchased a house about 12 years ago now, almost.
Yeah.
And back in the time, man, great interest rates, great things like that. And we didn't go into it with the attitude of, oh man, this is going to be like, this great investment. But we did have the attitude of, man, this price is so low. Once we get to the point of, moving on to another house, we can rent this out and different things like that. And so we were able to rent it out for a couple of years. We did that. It helped us out financially. It was a lot of work though.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work to maintain that. We did have an opportunity to use a company to do that, so we tried that for a little bit and paid the company a little bit and still made some money off the rental. But the big investment came when we were able to sell that house, man. Yeah. And so we oh my goodness, it was so much work trying to get it ready. So many things were wrong with it, and it's crazy because when we lived in the house, we rarely had any issues. Yeah. But as soon as we moved out, man, renters, something that happened, and especially when we got really ready to sell it, there's a lot of stuff that we poured a lot of money into it. But at the end of the day, man, we sold it. We were able to pay off some debt. We were able to, buy some things that we wanted to buy. We were able to get a newer house and get some stuff like that, man. So it was pretty cool. And if I had to try it again, I would probably go kind of tiptoeing. But it was a lot of work. But at the end was a big payoff. For real estate and stuff like that, man. So it might be something we get back into, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was a lot of work.
Even if it's small, being a landlord is tough.
Yeah.
Because you can't go inside the house to see what's really happening. The people could be tearing up your place. But what some landlords are doing now, they're doing 30 to 60-day checkups.
Yeah.
They go in and check on the facility to make sure everything is good there. But being a landlord is tough.
Yeah, it was really hard. really hard.
Especially residential. Commercial is a little bit different because it's a different style business, but it's still tough because people tear up your stuff and it's not there, so they don't value it.
Yeah.
So being a landlord is tough. There's companies that help manage that, but again, you got to pay for that, and that stuff is not cheap. But real estate is where it is. Selling those things is always great. You reap a harvest once you sell them if you hold on to them long enough at the right time. Sometimes it's a bad market or a bad place, or you jump out too soon or too late, or you hold on too long. It just depends. It's spiritual discernment. You have to follow the Lord in those things. But real estate is great if you can sell it and take the money and reinvest it into something bigger and better. Pay off some debt. Ownership is a big deal because the landlord is in 100% control. But when you sell it, when you own some things, you sell it, you're in control. I like commercial stuff too with the business because commercial property, it appraises for more, and when you sell it, you can sell it for a little bit more depending on what it is. And leasing a commercial property, you have a few more restrictions. You can draw it up in the plan too if you decide to lease some of the property. Right. But residential is very hard.
Yeah, man. That's something. That's something. We dove into that, man. I didn't even think we were going to get into that, man, kind of stuff. But that was good, man. And so as we wrap up today, just thinking about it, like I said, this podcast is all about helping men honor God in every single part of their life. We're specifically talking about money. So as we wrap up today, man, what is some advice that you can give to a man? It doesn't have to be a young man, but just any kind of man as far as money is concerned. We pretty much hit a lot of good stuff, man. But any final thoughts or anything like that?
Right now, the scriptures talk about your youth, and you devour as much as you can right now. Go get scratch, claw, work as hard as you possibly can, because the scriptures often remind us that you're dying day by day.
Right.
You will not always have the same. My friend, he's 75, calls it DPE, or dynamic personal energy. You will not have this DPE forever.
Right.
So right now, while you have it, get as much as you can, save as much as you can, earn as much as you can, invest as much as you can. Go run. Not to a personal detriment, but try as many things you possibly can. Invest, make as much as you can. Not to the detriment of the family, but you go make it.
Right.
Because the future is coming. And you want to create some opportunities for your generations. You want to build generational wealth.
Right.
How do I do that? Cash is king, but cash is only as good as the person who has it in their hands. But if you take that cash, make down payments, and save it and invest it into real estate, into things that are growing, not depreciating, appreciating. Oftentimes we buy too many depreciable items, cars, RVs, clothes, watches, stuff like that. Depreciable items. Look for more appreciable items, and the number one appreciable item is real estate that you can invest into, because that thing will pay off. And that the deal we're doing right now, we're talking about Blue Hollow. I'm thinking about my grandkids. I don't have any yet. My daughters are 19 and 15, but my grandkids should be able to benefit from this if we play our cards right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's cool, man. I know. Said we're gonna close, man, but that's something recently that I've been thinking about. I was actually going through a Bible study with some younger guys, and we were talking about generational, not just wealth, but generational, the idea of passing the baton spiritually. So we talked a little bit about financial and different things like that, and your relationship with God and all kind of stuff, man. And the idea, like you said, of thinking beyond yourself, right?
Yeah.
Thinking beyond even your kids, your grandkids, great grandkids, man. What can I do now to set them up for success in their spiritual life? What can I do to set them up for success financially, so they don't have to reset? They don't have to start from the bottom. They don't have to start from scraps.
Yeah.
But they can have a solid foundation to build off on. As they move on in their future, man. And a lot of different cultures, a lot of different places have done a great job at doing that. And so that's something I think that we can all just make sure that we are doing as we move forward into the future, man.
You went there, so I gotta just touch on it just a little bit
good,
for time
man,
purposes. In the African American community, we have not been very good at thinking next generation. But it was a time when my great grandparents did. My wife's grandmother is 100 years old, and she was doing things for her children. Her son is 70, 69, 68, and there was a period from 50 to probably 80 where there's a group of people who were thinking about the next generation because they worked and scratched and clawed so hard. She was in Jackson, Mississippi. She's 100 years old, so she's seen a lot of stuff.
Right.
And she scratched and clawed, and she was thinking about her next generation because it's how hard it was for her. But then something happened in 1980. Things started to change. My parents' generation, and because I'm be 46 in a couple of months, my dad would have been 69. My mom is 64. Something happened with that generation where they said, I don't want to work as hard as grandma did. So I don't want my kids to have to scratch and claw work that hard. And there was a shift to where we started in the 80s. He started giving kids stuff that they didn't earn. And now you see the byproduct of my generation. Because I was born in 77. The byproduct of my generation, people who have never worked and scratched and clawed. You watch the media, coaches are getting a bad rep for disciplining kids. Sometimes some coaches are humiliating, but coaches save our lives, and tough situations save our lives. And sometimes our parents, we dysfunctionally help our children where they are not set up for the next generation. So there was a period in African American history in America where it was the thing to do. Mound Bayou, where I was born, Isaiah T. Washington was a former slave. He was thinking next. When you go to Mound Bayou now, there's nothing in Mound Bayou. The Taborian General where I was born, all black staff, all African American staff, and of nurses and doctors who were thinking about the future. Now it's non-existent. I think they're trying to turn it back into a clinic. So you mentioned generation. We have dropped the baton on preparing our next generation for what's next because we are consumers. We have to move from being a consumer to being a producer who is thinking generationally.
Right.
I can only eat so much. I can live so many places. I can't eat my seed. I have to take this seed, put a little bit over there, and plant a little bit and think about the future.
Right.
And we got to do a better job. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about everybody on the call who is not doing that, of thinking about the future, because tomorrow's coming.
Yeah, man, and it's tough, man. I know, for me, like I said, I got a 5-year-old girl, man, and I think about just me, like my helping her, and it's sometimes, man, it can be something simple, like where she's struggling, like to open something, or where she's struggling to, try to figure something out, and I try to. Of course, as a dad, I want to fix it. I just want to do it. It's sometimes it's like, Kara, give me that, open that, right? Yeah. And sometimes I gotta hold myself back and be like, man, them chips gonna fly all over the place when she open that bag, But she need to open them chips, right? Right. She go like, and this little stuff like that.
She try to feed herself.
Right.
There's a scientific principle called ZPD, it's zone of proximal difficulty, and as parents, we have to provide ZPD based on our children's ages. Yeah. I wouldn't give her a Sam's bag of chips or something that she can't get into. Right. But I can give her a bag of chips, show her how to do that, something small that she can handle in her zone. Right. But what we're doing, we're not giving our kids any zones. Yeah. We're helping them. We call it loving them to death. That's what that literally is. Yeah. I can love you to death, which means I did not prepare you for the future next generation, and you were not set up for success. Right. So ZPD is a big deal in everybody's life. And as she grows, increase the ZPD. Increase it, and she moves in a different zone. Financially, spiritual, physical, etc. Right. And we think we're helping our kids. Right. We're helping them to the unemployment line. We're helping them to prison. Yes. We're helping them to robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're helping them to being financially illiterate. We're not really helping them. We're really hurting them when we think we're helping them.
Yeah, and I think it has to be a sense of awareness too, because like I said, I'm sitting back and I'm looking like, man, how am I helping her prepare for the future? It's just something as simple as like, brush your teeth, Go ahead, go in there and lotion yourself up, go ahead and do that. Like, I know you can do that, and then, it's going to be faster if I do it. Yeah, it's gonna be quicker. It's gonna be done better if I do it. But those getting her to get those reps in is something that I'm having to constantly, pull back and be aware of, and just say, hey, we're gonna let her do that. We're gonna let her figure that out. My wife does a better job than I do. My wife be like, girl, go up in there and do what you need to do. And as daddy, I'm just like, I just want to do it, and I gotta train myself to sit back and let her do just simple stuff like that, man.
So many things are firing in my brain right now. You talk about. I believe in the 5-step leadership model, the ladder. I don't know if I showed you that before. I think we went through that, but I believe in I do, you watch, we talk.
Yeah.
And I'm doing her a disservice, even in the ZPD, if I don't train her. It's called teaching, training, discipling. Discipling is teacher, and I'm doing her a disservice if I don't show her. Yeah. There is a right and a wrong way, and there's a bunch of right ways. There's a bunch of wrong ways. My job is to lay some right ways out there for her. Here are a few ways to do this. Just like with finances, here are a few ways to do this to be financially free and financially wealthy and to think generational. But you decide. I want to provide opportunities. And these are the ways where you will be financially illiterate or robbing Peter to pay Paul for the rest of your life and not have anything for your next generation. Shame on us if we don't provide for the next generation. These are the ways that not to do it. These are 4 or 5 ways to do it. Choose this day what you want to do. Again, I do, you watch, we talk, because everything has been done under the sun. Ecclesiastes, Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. So everything's been done. It's been done in different ways.
Yeah, that's good, man.
And I'd like to thank you for checking out this episode of the Men to Men podcast. We have a live stream that we do every other week. And so if you want to check out our latest live stream, you can check out this video right here. If you just need more information about how to grow in your relationship with God, you can check out this video right here. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.